All right. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amona, and you don't know already. I pray everybody is doing well. So, at this juncture, we're going to continue where we left off, revisiting this No Woman, No Cry in the context of additional information that is public information for those who still have a desire to understand, and a desire to know public information. Okay. So, yesterday, just to recap, I started to read over chapter 5 and a little bit before in Rita Marley's book. This is No Woman, No Cry, because we were taking a look at the conditions by which they signed on to JAD Records. Now, this particular revisiting study is going to be looking at 1968, thereabout, to 1972, because these are the JRD years according to what was left on the record. And so what we discovered yesterday is that in 1967, according to Rita's account and other accounts, they met Johnny Nash and Danny Sims, which becomes his manager. And when they come around later that year, this is the first overseas deal that they make outside of out before Island Records, but after Studio One, right? And so we're gonna pick up now where we left off, because I was, let me not go ahead of myself, right? I'm reading what Rita is saying, and then I'm going back over it to find supporting evidence, because much like the other books, and again, I do this with all of the studies. And so for those who are interested and have been interested for just research and studying in general, welcome to everyone, right? But this is how we do for all studies. Sometimes you just do the overview, and then you got to come back and, if it interests you, continue to look. So we are on page, I was going to say something and it kind of jumped out of my mind. It'll come back to me. So we read a little bit about Johnny Nash yesterday. We read a little bit about the Rasta elder and how they were introduced to him. And now we're going to continue. Okay. We are going to continue. Artists, what's going on? Hit the likes. Monisha, welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the conversation. Indeed, hit the like, share the video. So right now, I've been looking for that Neville Willoughby book. I actually did see Neville, what's his name again? The graphic designer. His name just jumped out of my head. He was referencing the book a couple of years ago, but that book is out of print. And they were kind of alluding to that book was a fictional book of this whole JAD situation. So I was like, I can't find a book, cannot find a book. But we're not going to get off track, are we? Let's continue. We are on page 66. And it is in chapter 5, right? So Rita says she went to the hilltop. Okay. She went to the hilltop. Valerie, welcome to the conversation. And they was like, finally, we're moving on up. They was like the Jeffersons, to the east side or to the hilltop. You know what I mean? No more tin mackerel. You know what I mean? No more bully beef and rice. You understand what I'm saying? Well, they wouldn't be eating bully beef because they was Rasta. You understand? But you get the point. So she was like, ooh, so let me continue. Margaret Nash, Johnny's wife, befriended me right away. And that's, I was like, Margaret Nash. Let me go and look her up. I don't think I did the last time. I'm a look. And I went on his Wikipedia like we read yesterday. No signs of her. I'm like, this is weird. But don't worry about a thing. Okay. It says here, she was attracted to us, but thought we were weird. She even said it right out. You all are strange looking people with your dreadlocks. And you're so quiet. Okay. But I thought she was the quiet one. She was a very pretty, light-skinned woman with a lot of American Indian in her. And very kind, always looking out for me. So I said, hold on there before we can go forward, right? Give thanks, Manisha. Sometimes I bust out into song. But before we can go forward, I was like, well, who is this? And why is it that they're not speaking of this woman, right? So you don't know it already. We're going to share our screen. We are going to share our screen so that we can journey on this together and then move forward from there. So hold on there. All right. Let me share my screen here to some of my findings. Y'all know I always be digging in the crates. It's like a dub plate, but for research. You know what I mean? Like, I bet you don't have that dub plate. Yeah, like digging in your crate. The research is some other research, but let me continue here. Let me not get off track. So I went over to, and I'm gonna share it right here. I went over to what's something name? To the discography, right? And that's where I first found her. And this is her picture. So that is who's on the front cover. It says here, Margaret Nash, right? Model. I was like, huh? Songwriter and record label executive, formerly married to Johnny Nash. So at the time that Rita meets her, and we know that this is in the year about 1968, them with it, right? Because they come back around and she's still pregnant. We're gonna find out in a minute. And so she's the wife at this time of Johnny Nash. So her maiden name was Rollins. And I found it interesting next to it because I saw Sissy Nash, Josita, and Jomada records. So I'm like, huh, what is that? And if you scroll down here, you're seeing, back in the day, if you registered BMI or whatever, if you registered with companies, even today, your name is going to be on paperwork. So let's jump over. So I was like, I saw that Joda Records before. We saw that yesterday, the defunct company that they started in 64, went out of business in 66, and then they came to Jamaica and formed JAD. So for Jamada, you see US label from New York, name for Johnny, Margaret, and Danny. Just gonna go ahead and forget Margaret altogether. Okay, so when they were, according to the paperwork, when they were forming this record label, the one we read about yesterday, she was part of that. I think it was Joda Entertainment. See, Joda Entertainment is the parent company. And it was Joda that they released the song on. Let me go back real quick. It's Joda that it was said they released the song on. And because the advertisement said "Burn, Baby, Burn," according to the conversation, they let me go get it because I don't even want to misquote. I don't want to misquote. Hold on 1 second. We read the article and I closed the article. So let me just make sure I could see it here. It's the reason they give for him leaving America. Right here. Let's share it real quick. It says in 1964, Nash and manager Danny Sims. So whoever wrote this left out Margaret. Formed Joda Records in New York. Joda released the Cow Sills single, All I Really Want to Be Is Me. Although Joda filed for bankruptcy after only 2 years, Nash and Sims moved on to marketing American singers to Jamaica, owing to the low cost of recording in the country. Right? So that particular record label is still them. JAD was still them. They're just, So now we get to find out that Jamada, which is sub-labels of Joda and Jacida, are Johnny, him wife Margaret, and Danny Sims. Yeah? So let's continue. And that's what you see here. This is on discogs.com. So then I kept going a little more, and we were able to see that she is getting writing credit. Wait, this is not where she's getting the writing credit. Hold on. She's going to get writing credit for writing 4 songs, of which her husband of the time performed. What is the writing credit? So he was making a lot of songs. Hold on 1 second. Oh, here it is. So here we see, it says that she was born 1941 and died 1982. I didn't have enough time to figure out the cause of death, but that's another day. But she did die young, according to this. She would have been 41 years old, right? So that's pretty young. and we don't know why at this juncture. And it goes on to say that Sissy Nash is what they call them, model, songwriter, and record label executive. So when you scroll down, it's here, you will see her writing credit. These are the songs that she wrote. You see, if that's why I always advocate for people writing your history, writing your story. Because if you don't do it, somebody gonna write you out of this. You could have been there. You could have been putting them on your back. You could have been sacrificed. You could have been all that stuff. And with the stroke of a pen or the erase of an eraser, you no longer exist in the storyline. Because we read his whole profile, and she not near mentioned, and I found one or two articles that named, actually one article that named all three of the wives, because he was married three times, hence the title. But anywho, Beautiful Baby, she was a co-writer on that. I'll Never Go to a Party Again, she wrote that according to the credits. Let's Move and Groove Together, she wrote that according to the credits. And Understanding, she's a co-writer on that. And two of those songs in 65, her husband performs, and two other people performed the other songs. So I just thought that was curious to find out, who is Rita talking about? Who is this Margaret of which she's talking about? So let me read what Rita says again so that we can put it in context. Margaret Nash, Johnny's wife, befriended me right away. She was attracted to us but thought we were weird. And then she goes on to say she was a very pretty, light-skinned woman with a lot of American Indian in her. So let's continue. Hold on one second. So now we're gonna see something that when I was looking, I was like, wow, this is interesting. This is a Jet magazine, because remember they said she was a model. So here is a Jet magazine article. Johnny Nash weds model Sissy Rollins. Singer Johnny Nash and Margaret Sissy Rollins, both 22, were married 2 weeks ago in Yonkers, New York, by a justice of the peace. Miss Rollins, a one-time Jet model, was a finalist in the 1962 Miss Beaux Arts contest. Friends for almost 3 years. Doesn't that sound familiar? When I was reading this, it's been 3 years since I'm knocking on your door. I don't know. This story took place how many years earlier than the whole infamous Miss, what, I forgot the contents that Cindy was in. But I was like, this joint sound familiar. But anyway, that's an interesting story. But anywho, it says here that a one-time Jet model was a finalist in the 1962 Miss Beaux Arts contest. Friends for almost 3 years, the newlyweds began, quote, heavy dating, end quote, a few months ago, said the bride. I love being married. So basically, he's hollering at her when she's 19. Yeah? Both of them is the same age, according to this. I love being married. I'm giving up my professional career as a bunny and model to be a housewife and travel with Johnny. Hence, when is this? 2-3 years later, she's in Jamaica and, giving tips and pointers to Rita. So she's a model, which, of course, if she's looking at some very cultural looking, what to them it's the antithesis of what you would think a model was. So in her understanding, in her purview, they would be looking different, very much different, in her words, weird, right? So it makes her comment that Rita is remarking in putting context. So it says here, she says, I love being married. I'm giving up my professional career as a bunny and model to be a housewife and travel with Johnny. We hope to have a family, but after a year or two of fun together, the Nashes currently live at 75th Street and Riverside Drive. Isn't that curious? This is curious. Let me see exactly what day. It tells you when they married, but I'm trying to, and then we're going to continue. I think that's curious. And it's a pretty lady. So Johnny must have said, hey, me gonna make me move no, you know. Me gonna make me move. So this is a Jet magazine. I'm trying to get the exact year if this is 62 or if this is 63, but this thing is moving. There we are. Let's move faster. 63. So this March 21st, 1963 episode Jet magazine. Look at Ruby D, young Ruby D. This 1963. Anywho, yeah. So let's continue. So for context, it says in this particular article here, the article says Johnny Nash, Lester Johnny. It's about when he passed. So at the end of this article, and this is the picture we saw yesterday. This is when a younger Bob is working with them. Johnny Nash with Bob Marley in a recording studio in Jamaica. Nash was an early promoter of reggae. We read that already, right? And this is the picture here. At the bottom, it says Johnny Nash married 3 times to Margaret Rollins in New York City in 1963. We just saw that, the announcement in Jet. Doris and Vaughn in Houston in 1976. So less than 30 years later, he was divorced and married Doris and Vaughn. And Carly Joyce Collins in Houston in 1986. And so less than 10 years later, because he had to have time to divorce and then marry again, he married Carly. All right. So now let's get back to Rita. So now for me, it's putting a whole lot of stuff in context. Oh, wait, before we get back there, I wondered what happened to uh, Margaret. I guess I'll save that. Let's get back to Rita now. Greetings, Jerry. Welcome to the conversation. So we just went over a little bit about the person that Rita is referencing. So let's take it from the top and continue. She goes on to say, I began to notice things though, whenever I visited her house. Remember the house that she was like, ooh, the first visit, we visited her house and it was everything on the hilltop, breathtaking. But now she's visiting them more often. I began to notice things though, whenever I visited her house. Things I hadn't ever seen before. What kind of things that? And I realized that she was going through experiences I never even thought about. She making us curious now. I wonder if she go tell us. Not like me said, I never read the book already, you know. She says, and I'm saying, wow, is this how Americans do it? So the culture shock on top of the music industry culture, just regular culture shock. And then she's thinking, wait a minute, we finally made it. Because remember, she thought this was gonna be their ticket out, right? The plan to move to America fell through because the plan was for her to come as well on the visa. That fell through. He had to come back. And now they're seeing it as their way out. And now they're going closer into this thing as she's seeing the thing. I look shaky, right? And I'm saying, wow, is this how Americans live? Because Johnny, now she's giving us a little insight, will be in one room with girls, groupie kinds of girls. And Margaret will be in the next room talking business on the phone. And she put exclamation point, right? So it's like, what kind of madness this? And then we see this behavior mirrored later on in Sadela's narrative of how her son Nesta was flexing. Welcome. Right? So let's continue. And later I said to Bob, is this how married people live in America? No, she concerned, no, you know. She concerned, no, you know. Did he pop up with an extra child as yet? This is the year of 68. So not any extra children yet, although in my research recently, I was trying to figure out what was going around this time. And then I came across a youth that maybe I was just doing many other things that I might explore later, because he's saying that he was born in 68, although they said they disproved that he's not a Marley. But I think it's worth taking a look at, but not right now. So we're gonna continue. So she's like, wait, what kind of slackness this? I saw them do it. So Jerry said he learned from the best. He was like, wait, I saw you do it. He says, this is Babylon life. Remember in the movie where she is like going at him in this party, and she was going at him like, yo, what kind of Babylon thing this? And if you're something about if you lay down, then in a Babylon dirtiness, we can't remember, right? Come and never watch it again. But this is kind of what's being echoed at this point. This is Babylon life. This is Babylon life, Bob. But remember, she didn't consider possibly that the opening, the door that you were looking to go in, this is what it entailed. And a lot of people who enter the music industry doesn't consider that. But according to Sadella, the granny Booker, she told her son early on, because remember, she used to work at the rum bar. So according to her, early on, she told him that she had concerns about him entering into this industry. That's what she's telling us retrospectively. But anywho, she said, this is a Babylon life, Bob. I kept insisting. Do you see what they're doing? Imagine him say, me not understand, Rita. And this you say you want. You say you want level up and come out of anti-house. And now you can tell me about Babylon life. I don't know. I'm just imagining what he would say, right? It says here, do you see what they're doing? I was really shocked and vowed never to get caught up in that way of living. And literally, that's the way of living she ended up getting caught up in. Anywho, I felt very insecure and skeptical about the whole situation. And I worried about what we were getting into, even as I was drawn to it all. So like a moth to a flame, she was doing her Janet Jackson, burned by the fire. Okay. She's drawn to it. Why? Because we know that they're in a precarious financial situation. Okay. She's pregnant. Them not have no money. Them live in a front room at auntie yard. Okay. And they're doing this music thing, and that's the only thing they have going for them. So it feel like, say, your back is against the wall. And a lot of people continue at this point and pay dearly for it. It says here, she was skeptical. Then she says, I like the next level, and certainly the dollars. But I felt that as Rastafari, we should be careful about this kind of exposure, which leads me to believe, where was I don't know who, because somebody in this conversation is responsible for being like, yeah, let's do it. It's both bodies or somebody, because we see later on in the Wailers story, Peter and Bunny is like, nah, I'm good. We're not going over there. So, and he was willing to go. This is even the story of how he ends up to Trinidad Carnival and how he ends up in Haiti with Esther Anderson. So it's either him or both him and Rita are in agreement at some point in this conversation that even though this is feeling quite uncomfortable, because remember before this, she was on the train, not on the train. I sound like Oliver, in the minibuses down the subway. She was on the bus, preaching the Bible, Rasta Rita, right? So now that you're in this space where you're like, nah, Bridget, we can't go no further than this. But yet still you're compelled to stay, right? Me not blame nobody, but just I say, the way it's written, it's interesting. I'm quite sure, because the way he leaves things on record, if you go to a recording around this time, you might find out how he feels or how he felt. If you go to a 1968 recording, you might hear where I think about. So anyway, it says, and I looked. No, wait, hold on there. And so she says, I like the next level and certainly the dollars, but I felt that as Rastas, we should be careful about this kind of exposure. And you hear in Don Taylor's book, oh, the one Rita, this is what Don Taylor is saying, secondhand information. She love money and da-da-da-da-da. But she's saying it herself. Is this her love of money, or is this her want to just get out of the situation? We don't know. For those who just joined us, welcome. You missed the front part of it. But the woman on the screen would have been the Margaret of which Rita is speaking. We learned a little bit about her life for context. So we're continuing now because up to this point, I didn't know what even she looked like. So shout out to Jet Magazine for that. Let's continue. One day, they wanted a photo shoot. So wait, just to set the scene, Johnny Nash in the room, right? Remember what we read in the Jet Magazine. Let me go and read it again. Let me read it again. Let me read it again. My girl said that she quit her career and that she married him at 22 and that she was willing to travel around with him, have fun before they have children. That's what she said in the interview, quote unquote. Well, he was having fun, but she clearly was working. I don't know how that went. Okay. And Rita is like, oh, heck nah. One day they wanted a photo session. And when I arrived, Margaret said, oh, no, that's not how we want you, Rita. Because remember, that means that they already had to have signed onto them. They are retained by this new record label. You know, the new record label is kind of like when Pebbles, that story of TLC, how she gets this derivative record label and this is her act, right? So the person is like, yo, you gonna do what I say, I'm gonna craft your look, this, that, and the third. So they come to do a photo session and she says, oh no, that's not how we want you to look, Rita. You're too young and beautiful. You need to dress up. We want to see your strong legs. Remember, she was a bunny, according to the article. She was a bunny. So she is just repeating what she possibly heard, which was, let me read again. She was a jet model and a finalist for Miss Bow Arts, right? And then she said, let me share it again. Then she said that, so this was her training. This is would have been how Margaret was groomed, right? In the world of modeling. Show us some skin. We want to see what you look like, X, Y, and Z. So what she's bringing that culture into the Rasta culture, right? So this is her, this is him. This was when they were young, 22 years old. But this is what I'm reading from. She says, I love being married. I'm giving up my professional career as a bunny. So why she attack? A playboy bunny? Me never dig so far. Let me know for the fun. What kind of bunny she could attack? And model to be a housewife and travel with Johnny. We hope to have a family, but after a year or two of fun together. So these are the fun. These are the fun. The fun is this is more than 2 years later. She didn't have any children at this point. It doesn't say that she did at this point. And this is 68. So 5 years later, they're still having quote unquote fun. Let's continue. Let us continue. All right. So she has said, no, Sarita, you look like Granny. We want to see your strong legs. For what? So she gave her a mini dress, one of hers. And ooh, this is where the dichotomy comes in now. Because before you were like, yo, you wear your skirt long tongue to the ground and you wrap up your head and you hold your meditation. And now this is the question. Are you going to be that person or are you going to be the person that they need you to be? Are you going to be who the music wants you to be? Are you going to allow them to groom you, put mini skirt on you? Question, right? And she says, she gave her a mini dress, one of hers, and ooh, to her surprise, she was so excited to be in that dress. So in that moment, boop, you know, Rasta liberty drop off. Rasta in a mini skirt, right? Yeah, she broke her out, broke out. Cause your body no. She try broke them out. No, because first them I should see them I do slackness, right? No, them I say take off your liberty and put on the mini frock. Okay. But then she says, so this is before the dread. She says, to her surprise, she was excited to be in the dress. By then, her hair was in a short afro. And after Margaret gave her some earrings to go with the mini dress, she put her in front of the mirror and said, look, this is you. Because Margaret don't want to be in no mini frock alone. Now they're going to make me look if Margaret was a Playboy bunny, because what other kind of bunny could she have been? I'm just confused at this whole conversation. But anywho, she says, "Look how pretty you are. Look how pretty you are." So no, not only is she trying to broke out Rita, she's like, "Look good, man, Rita. You know, see how you look good," to make you feel comfortable with this change here. Because remember, you're in a business, so you're selling something. You're selling looks. You're selling an image. You're selling a package, not just the music, right? She says, "And I looked, and I hadn't seen myself that way for a long while, not since she was 17 or 18. After that, she'd been really into being a true Rasta sister. And maybe," she says, "I relaxed right there." Is it maybe? What that mean? What that mean? Like, oh, you embraced the different not being a Rasta sister? I don't know what that means. I have it highlighted from last time, but I don't know what that's supposed to mean. "I guess I understood that there was part of me that hadn't changed, that wouldn't change no matter what I wore. Because I still felt like a true Rasta sister." Hold up, pump the brakes. We. She says, "But maybe that's why I appreciated Margaret's encouragement so much. Her always reminding me how pretty I was, always watching out for me amongst the men. Whenever she thought I'd seem tired, she'd say, 'Oh, you have to come in and lie down on my bed. You can't keep up with these guys, Rita. You're pregnant.'" I don't know where she get on her bed for, because according to the storyline, things are going in her people in place. But uh so she put the pregnant Rita, according to this story, in the mini frack. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Okay. Because, quote, "these guys," end quote, "would be strumming guitar from 6 in the evening until 6 in the morning. And I'd be there thinking, wow, we're really in this now, and wondering how they do it." So basically, studio session, they're just there and they're in the zone. And she's like, "Yo, that's not your speed. You need to relax." By this time, according to her story, the two youth them is at home with Auntie. Okay. Then Danny Sims would pass out things he called, quote unquote, vitamins. I remember reading this before, right? So far we have questionable environment. We have slackness agwan, according to her, with Danny Sims with groupie woman in her room while in wife in there. So that means she's complicit. Then we have changing of your garments, changing of your clothes, because your clothes carry energy, right? Your clothes put a spirit on you. Okay. And so to change your clothes, she says she still feel like Rasta sister. To change your clothes does put a level of a different energy on you. So they're opening up to what they're experiencing. Remember, on the other side is this is, oh, we're getting money. We getting a retainer a week. We getting 100 US. But what are you doing? You're being exposed in a certain environment. Remember, when she first changed over, she didn't even want to eat from the pot that Auntie was cooking the pork and the callaloo in, right? That's when she was under our order. But now it's like, well, real life is kicking in. So you're willing to change your clothes. You're willing to go around there. You're willing, because she's feeding into what may be your insecurity. And as she said, she was insecure. I felt very insecure and skeptical about the whole situation. She's feeding into the ego. You're beautiful. You're pretty. You know what I mean? And reaffirming you and actually seeing you, which was an issue that, according to Rita's narrative, she had. Okay. From her complexion to her parents leaving and all of these things. So somebody feeding into that, you're moving, even though you feel uncomfortable, you're going right into their grasps. Okay. And make no mistake about it, these two are married. According to what we just read, Johnny Nash and Margaret Nash. Anywho, it says here, "And I looked." Wait, anyway, she relaxing at it, and anyway. So the man start get uppers. I didn't even realize it at the time, but the vitamins were uppers. Yes, uppers. So this man, so now we have drugs on the scene. Drugs, sex, and woman. Ain't that the rock and roll mantra? Remember where they're coming from. They've been in the music industry, right? They've been in the music industry. This group now that came over to America. So all of these things, they're exposing them to. Now, how difficult is it to maintain in this environment? It says that's what we found out later. So they found out later that he was giving them some type of drugs. And I'm saying, what a wicked man. This is so dangerous. He could have hurt her baby. So I don't know if the man knew she was pregnant and why he's just giving out drugs like it's candy. But again, this is the environment that they walked into. So we're going to skip down because what we at? 35 minutes. She has the third baby. The third baby is born at home. We know that this is October of 68, according to the record. Bob is there. He's over there boiling tea and trying to help her to have the baby, and them take the neighbor string and bury it in the yard and all of that. Okay. And them named the baby David. Okay. Them named the baby David. And his nickname became Ziggy, according to the story. So no, we're on page 69. Is everybody following the story? Let me know in the comments section. Let me know if this gives the story more color. Like we was kind of reading the story in black and white. Like, does this give the story more color? Is the story more vibrant? Okay, so she wasn't only just his wife, she was also assisting him in his dealings. That's Johnny Nash. She was doing the paperwork part of it on the label that they left in New York. She was actually, her name was on it, X, Y, and Z. All right. So at the time, she says, Rita says, our work with JAD began. So it's giving like after he's born. Monisha says it makes it vibrant. Indeed, indeed, indeed. So at the time our work with JAD began. So now she finally have the baby. Bunny had been incarcerated for ganja use. So most of the demo tapes we made consisted of Bob and me and sometimes Peter Tosh. When we finally did sign a contract. So all this time that they had to be like, no, you know, say I not eat this. Because why would she say when they finally did sign a contract? That mean they was working you in. You know what I'm saying? Like you saw all the slackness, you saw this stuff, and you were still like, yeah, man, no worry, man, we can't work it out. I don't know. So she said when she finally did sign a contract, she would be in the studio for hours. They worked in Jamaica until JAD got them passports and visas to travel to the United States. And we know by this storyline, she been wanted to go to the US. That's how she ended up, before she and Bob get married, she ended up taking up the writing thing and ended up writing and corresponding with Bob's mother, Nesta's mother. And eventually, you know, the visa comes and the plan is that this is what he says. Okay, we went over that already. He says on the immigration paperwork that he married her because he thought she was pregnant and that he planned to bring her to America. But that never. And then where did I read it? That every minute, Rita was going down to the immigration office thinking it was time. I don't remember where I read that, but I remember I read that. But we're gonna continue. So anyway, so because Bunny is not there, it's mostly Bob, Peter, and her on the record. When they finally did sign the contract, they would be in the studio for hours. They worked in Jamaica until JAD got them papers and visas to travel to the US. They got tickets for themselves and the children to Wilmington, Delaware, where they planned to stay a while with Bob's mother and her family before leaving for New York. To the children, it was a dream come true to be going to Grandma and her husband, Eddie Booker, and their Aunt Pearl, Uncle Richard, and Anthony, none of whom they'd met. Going to see Bob's family and going to school in America. So the way that sounds, why would you enroll them in school if you never plan to stay a while? You understand what I'm saying? Which one, there? Going to school in America. At the time, Sadella Booker was running a nursery, a daycare center for children, and ours were to be part of it so that I would be able to go to work. So you come, you're not come for visit. I come, you come for stay. So that was a catch and a new experience for the kids and me moving to America. Curious. But when so how you just sign a deal, and then welcome to those who just joined us. You are plan, I take everybody a plan for move to America when the people live at Jamaica of whom you just signed the deal with. Not curious. Because I was hearing two stories and I was like, yo, the story is confusing, but come to find out they came more than one time, right? The whole family. But then we wondered how it was going to work, if we were going to work at all. What kind of decision was this to pack up and go? We don't know. You must tell us. My position, and I said it more than once, was that this move must be the for the better. So was it like, yo, we don't know what's going on? Are we just going to bail out on the thing? Like you planning to come to America? Like, I don't get it. Like, what's going on? And a new experience for the kids and me moving to America. But then we wondered how it was going to work, if it was going to work at all. She says, my position, I already read that. We could not be in the situation we were in now in Jamaica with three kids and still not seeing any future in the music business. And this had to mouth thing was getting otaada. So we read over the part already about the breastfeeding and how at this point Bob was kind of getting hitey tighty and he must say, cover up yourself, you know, sister America, you're the Rita, put away your breast. So what kind of thing that? And, you know, we read that already. I'm jumping down here. And then they get into a little squabble back and forth, this, that, and the third. It says here, hold on. Yeah, so we're going to jump down. We're going to jump down. After a short time in Wilmington, we left the children with Eddie and Moms, as I eventually called Sadella Booker. So this will be her first time. I think this would be her first time. Or maybe she met her already, that she meets her, possibly. So they took the train to New York, and I have to admit that I was scared when we got off the train in New York and headed for Johnny Nash and Margaret's apartment where we were staying. She said she was almost afraid to walk along the street. She kept saying, I don't like those buildings. They look like they're going to fall. Okay, boom, boom, boom. She reaches to America. She says, everything seems so perfect from the sidewalks to the storefronts in the clothing to the clothing people wore. And the guest room in Johnny Nash and Margaret's place that first night, when she and Bob did a pump up, account to she puts in some interesting things along the way. I'll be like, did the writers tell you to put that in? Because that was, anyway, she said, then pump up. And they didn't want to mess up the bed, so then pump up in the kitchen, pan the people, them table. What in all of Tevin Campbell doing in the kitchen on the tabletop is going on here? You don't want to mess up the people and stuff, so you, come on. So in Jamaica, when Margaret had found out that we would be coming to New York, she'd been all excited at the prospect. So this is giving that these two, the Johnny, they're going back and forth. This is what this is giving, right? Because we did just read when they first got married that they were living, they got married in New York. So it's a possibility. It says, girl, when I get my hands on you, I'm going to dress you up, she had promised. As soon as I got up there, this being necessary, because it was winter and I was definitely not dressed for 40 degrees. So I don't know what's up with Margaret, if she thinks she's her dolly or what, or she was looking company in the situation that she was in, but it looks like she kept trying to reel her in. Even if I had known what to expect, I couldn't have afforded to prepare for it in any case. So the very next day after we arrived, Margaret took her shopping. She took her uptown, and she remembered emphasizing that, Rita, I'm going to take you uptown, girl. I'm trying to see if I need to read this part right here. She's getting an experience to see that there are also poor people in America. And she took her to somebody to do her makeup and shape her fro. And then she went back to Margaret's apartment and she prettied her up some more. Yeah. She thinks that she was just as excited as I was because I remember her saying at one point, you know, we're going to really show them something. Who is so at this point, I guess they're not really cemented. They're still quite young and more and malleable to a certain degree. She says, then we went to the studio and Bob was astonished. Oh, Margaret, he said accusingly, what have you done to Rita? Seriously? Not only was I wearing different clothes, I even had an eyebrow pencil, something I've never before worn and seldom have since. So remember, even they're around these people, and Bob is very aware and conscious that he's exposed to the type of women that the people who are mentoring him are getting with now, right? Like the model lady here that we see that he starts to go for this model lady type. Like, you know, he starts to go towards this type of aesthetic later on. So I find it curious that he's like, Rita, it was a good starting space, but his tastes and his desires begin to shift as time goes on. So, anywho, she says she have a new look even after 3 children. I've had a new interest too from Mr. Marley. Later, when we were alone, he took a long look at me and said, whoa, so you went and got yourself a fresh face. Anywho, she says she thanked Margaret for that face. But this is interesting. Now this further puts the in context because I wasn't getting it before when he was like, "We in the circle and you outside of the circle." Y'all remember that? If you didn't remember it, that was in an episode when I was reading the whole book. But this is when he first. This is the trip that he first introduced the "tell them you're my sister." Now, Johnny Nash, now that we know, would have known Rita is his wife. Okay, they signed these two in Jamaica. They're in your studio and doing demos with you and your manager. Now, y'all send for them to come to New York to start getting some type of traction. And this now puts this particular conversation into context. So after Rita gets done up, after the eyebrow pencil, not the eyebrow pencil. Let me take a sip of my tea, yeah. After all of this finally makes sense now. Back then, all the magazines and stories I read as a child had said that when you got married, it was understood that you were going to be married for life. You were going to be devoted. But remember, we're just reading or rereading that these people that she's amongst don't value that definition of marriage shown by Johnny Nash's 3-time divorce, right? So, and even the behavior that she said wasn't kosher. So, even though my mother and father had split up, Auntie had divorced Mr. Britton, and Sadella Booker had her trials, I was sure, maybe because I was so young, that my relationship with Bob would last. True, I would sometimes make arguments, usually about his flirting with other women, sometimes really just to pick a fight or even threaten him. I think I'm going to live somewhere else and stay away from you. But then she would start to cry. So, anywho, when she got to New York, this same eyebrow pencil, this same I'm going to take you shopping, this same trip, and she got to New York, though a new element was added because it was a record company recommendation. Who's the record company? JAD, possibly Danny Sims, and old boy right here, Nash. That you shouldn't let your fans know you were married. It's making so much more sense. Let me know if this book, I said it again, is it coming alive? It's popping up off the page. How could you be a devoted husband and sell records? Question. I didn't know this until I read in a newspaper interview. Bob, we hear you're married. Is it true you're married to Rita? And his answer was, oh no, she's my sister. So according to the way she's telling this story, this is the first time that she got this, oh no, you're my sister line. Okay? Curious. I think if it's during this time, I'm gonna stop here and with the whole you in the circle and the worry about that and me and you and nobody can break me up and Rita and Tate and blah blah blah. Right? And at the end, she says, "Yes, I'm his sister, and I'd rather be a good sister than a miserable wife." So he finessed her in that moment. Remember earlier on, she said she couldn't believe that Margaret could be in the other room and him over there doing what she wanted. But ultimately, it looks like she was being groomed by Margaret to accept it. That's what it looks like to me. I could be wrong, but misery do kind of love company a little bit. And it looks like she was being groomed to a certain degree to accept this liberty until you just begin to rationalize it. Now, there's some tapes. We're gonna come back here, but there's some tapes, and then I'm gonna wind down that were found recently, and I'm gonna share those, and then I'm gonna wind down. Let me know if you guys are in the building. We're looking at 68 to 72. Do 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 do. All right. So these were some tapes. Let me know if you heard about these. In doing the research, I was like, huh? So Bob Marley Bronx Jam Session tape 1968. So this would be accompanied to this experience because it's being said that it was 1968 or thereabouts. It was winter. And this was when they first came to America to go and do some promo or recording. Bob Marley Bronx Jam audio cassette, right? 1968. And then when they found it, basically they found it. I'm going to read it. Today I share with you a tape that was auctioned at Christie's on December 20th, 2002 for $26,290. This is as raw as it gets. Marley, a guitar and tape recorder. This tape was rare and even among collectors until a few years ago. Still, you would find it on very few sites today. I found somebody uploaded to YouTube as well. So essentially, they're saying that the jam session was on a cassette. I don't know how it was on a cassette, if the cassette was them time there, but it was recorded according to them. And the person who recorded it forgot about it. And they finally found it and Ray-Tay-Tay. So in 1960s era audio cassette tape, which features never before heard versions of 8 songs that a young Bob Marley recorded in New York when he had aspirations to become an American style rhythm and blues singer. Because remember, coming out of Studio One, he's still finding his wings. He hasn't fully settled into who he was, right? Joined by Jimmy Norman, a songwriter and later a member of R&B group The Coasters and others, this recording was made in 1968 using a simple home tape recorder. Norman's handwritten notation of Bob Marley Live is penned in blue ballpoint ink on the cassette, while his later edition of 7183 appears in a different colored ink. Not considering the value of the Marley material, Norman casually added coaster songs to the same cassette years later. Basically, they claimed that he was looking for a cassette to record some songs, and he found this, but he didn't record over. Welcome to those who just joined it. He didn't record over the original songs. Okay, so these are the songs that were on there: Wings of a Dove, Stranger on the Shore, One Love, True Love, Splish Splash for My Splash. Remember I said look at what he was singing about in 1968, and that will maybe help. I'm Hurting Inside, Falling in, Not Out of Love, written by someone else, Stay With Me, written by someone else, and You Think I Have No Feelings. And I'm play a little bit. They're saying, according to them, that this is one of the pictures from that jam session. I don't know why don't nobody have on no shirt. It must be hot. But hold on, let me go back. It's hot in there. No, I agree. So let's hear.
Woman that we tried to do, she fly away with my love. I ain't no troubles no more. One thing I know for sure,
definitely could hear that it's not, they're not mic'd up. You could hear that whoever the female singer is, and we're assuming it's Rita because she was there with the eyebrow pencils on. Uh, we could see that she's closer to the mic and they're further away because it's a little muddled. But yeah, that sounds like her. So yeah, okay. So that was curious. That one I'll put in the box if you want to look over that for those who are like into that kind of stuff. But yeah. So where are we? That is, oh, whatever happened to Margaret? Whatever happened to Margaret? I mean, she's going to continue a little bit more in the story, but what I was able to find of whatever happened to her is that on this website it speaks about a particular group in the late 70s and 79, and that this group was signed to a Solar Records. And it says the girls were noticed by Solar Records executive Margaret Sissy Nash. So it appears that even after she left or they divorced, her and Johnny Nash, she stayed in the music industry and she became an exec at this Solar Records, which it says is formerly a wife of singer Johnny Nash. So the president of the records, Dick Griffrey, gave this particular group a record deal. And when you look up Solar Records, it went on to be, a big record company. It's an acronym, Sound of Los Angeles Records, American record label founded in 78, reconstituted out of Soul Train Records only 3 years after it was founded with Soul Train. So that, and it says television show host and creator Don Cornelius. So how wild is that? Like she left over here, you know what I'm saying, and then she went over here and continued to do whatever it is she was doing. But according to the narrative, she dies in 83. So less than 4 years later, something happens, right? What I found curious is that this particular record is responsible for a lot of people, and like L.A. Reid, Babyface, The Whispers, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis. I was like, okay. So I don't know what happened there. Maybe somebody who's a music head knows what happened. I don't know what happened. But yeah, that's where she ended up. And then according to the narrative, she passed away. So that's what I have for today. That is the research that I was able to ascertain with this here particular conversation. Definitely for me, the second time around it adds more context to what I'm reading. It kind of puts things into a sequential order to get more understanding. So leave your questions. Leave your questions and comments. You guys don't come up to the mic. I don't know what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and wind down now and see you guys again as we continue to take a little bit of a deeper dive in these JAD time period, right? And we'll pick up. I have another treat that I found as well. So the next time we read, I'm coming with the research. So with that said, everybody have a blessed night until next time. Take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones. One.